Let's continue here in the explanation of Nukhbat Al-Fikar by Imam Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalaniyy. Don't forget, there's fatha on the kaf. Nukhbat Al-Fikar. Fikar. Ka. It's not sukoon. Fikr. Fikar. That's plural. And we've reached where the author says, may Allah have mercy upon him. وَمِنَ الْمُهِمِّ أَيْضًا, and amongst that which is important also is مَعْرِفَةُ آدَابِ الشَّيْخِ وَالطَّالِبِ, knowing the etiquette or etiquettes of the Shaykh and the student. وَيَشْتَرِكَانِ فِي تَصْحِيحِ النِّيَّةِ, they both share in correcting the intention. Yani, the Shaykh has some etiquettes that he should observe as the Shaykh, and the student has some etiquettes to observe as the student. And he started by telling us something they have in common. They have in common that they should both correct their intentions. And correcting the intention means doing the deed for the sake of Allah only. Or what has that meaning? Such as doing the deed in obedience to Allah. Or doing the deed seeking the reward. As opposed to doing the deed seeking the praise of the people. That's a major sin, to do the good deed seeking the praise of the people. Another time, inshallah, if Allah wills for us to review the sins of the heart and the obligations of the heart, then we can go into the issue of intention deeper. So he says, وَيَشْتَرِكَانِ فِي تَصْحِيحِ النِّيَّةِ, they both share in, they have in common that they should both correct their intentions. وَالتَّطَهُّرُ مِنْ أَعْرَاضِ الدُّنْيَا, and to be pure from seeking the fleeting worldly benefits, the trivial worldly benefits, the glory of the dunya, which is to be praised, to be recognized, to be looked up to, maybe make some money, perhaps. It's important. You want to work in ad-da'wah, I remind myself and you. Our Shaykh, he taught us to work in the da'wah, not to take the people's money for the da'wah. In fact, it reached me, the Shaykh used to pay people to listen to him. It's not the other way. He didn't tell them, pay me and I'll give you a lesson. He told them, I'll give you money if you listen to a lesson. وَتَحْسِينِ الْخُلُقِ, and perfecting the manners, improving the manners. Very important. You know that Allah told his Prophet in the Quran that had he been rude, had he been rough, then the people would have fled from him. And subhanAllah, I have to remind myself, I think not too long ago I went through a stage where maybe my manners were crumbling, and Allah enabled me to catch myself. Alhamdulillah. That's for the student and for the teacher. But nevertheless, even if your teacher has bad manners, if he really teaches the knowledge properly, then learn from him. Don't say, he's rude, I'm not going to learn from him. Because who's going to miss out? He has the knowledge. He's the teacher. He already has the knowledge. So you're going to deprive yourself because he's rude? I don't want to go too far, but like it was reported about one person, he said to a Shaykh, the people, they are repelled from you, from your mannerisms. They don't come to you to learn from you because of your manners. So he told that one, and if you were to stop learning, you would be a fool like them. Let's look how rude that was too. That's the point there. He told them, if you stop learning, you'd be a fool like them. You'd be stupid like them. You'd be ahmaq, not fool, stupid. If you stop learning, you'd be stupid like them. And also, what was reported about one of the scholars of hadith, was that at-Tirmidhi or an-Nasa'i, I don't recall, that he was in the session of a scholar. And then that scholar, when he noticed him, he stopped the lesson. He said, I will not deliver another word as long as that one is sitting in this session. So what did he do? He packed up his stuff. He grabbed his stuff and he got up and he left. So then that Shaykh continued his lesson. Later on, it reached that Shaykh that one that he kicked out of his session was narrating from his route. He told, how could he be narrating from my route? He left the session. So when they asked him, he said, I just went around the corner so he couldn't see me. And then I sat down and finished listening to the lesson. That's from the Shaykh. That's the rough manners from the Shaykh. And sometimes the rough manners come from the student. So then, inshallah, you want to be patient with those people. I remind myself. Then he says, وَيَنْفَرِدُ الشَّيْخُ بِأَنْ يُسْمِعَ إِذَا احْتِيجَ إِلَيْهِ. And amongst what's unique to the Shaykh, amongst the etiquettes of the Shaykh, not the etiquette of the student, is to teach when there's a need for it. So he says, yusmi'. Yusmi' means to make someone hear, to deliver, Amongst what is unique to the Shaykh is to deliver when there's a need for it. So not to withhold when there's a need for that. But sometimes there might not be a need actually. And the student would think that he's entitled to that. The teacher wouldn't give the student what he wants because he doesn't need to. Could happen. Like when the student is asking a question to get an answer, and then the teacher gives him a correct answer according to one madhab, and that answer doesn't get the student really what he wants. Like, for example, if someone were to ask me, can a woman recite while she's menstruating? And so I say no, and that's it, and I don't go any further. So then later, if a person found out there's another saying, then they might say, why you didn't tell me that? There's other sayings. So I didn't have to tell you that. وَلَا يُحَدِّثُ بِبَلَدٍ فِيهِ أَوْلَى مِنْهِ. And also, the Shaykh should not teach the hadiths in a town where there's someone more qualified. Now, he is talking here very specifically about the etiquettes of the muhaddith. He's saying Shaykh here, but most specifically, he's talking about the hadith scholar, but it's not restricted to the hadith scholar. What he's saying really is universal, but it's most applicable to the hadith scholar because that's his angle. But even someone who's not hadith scholar, you can still take these points and apply them to the faqih or to standard Shaykh who gives lessons. So he says, and that he doesn't, la yuhaddith, he doesn't give the hadiths in a town where there's someone more deserving, yani more qualified than him. One of the scholars said, if I were to give a lesson when so-and-so is in town, then I should get my beard cut off. Out of expressing how the proper etiquette is to leave the lesson to the one who's most qualified for that. So some people they struggle with their egos. May Allah help us. If you have to struggle with your ego, struggle with it so that you can get better. Don't let it go. You want to be the one who's talking, you want to be the one who's giving the lesson and who's noticed, then you need to check yourself. That's good. That checking yourself is good. بَلْ يُرْشِدَ إِلَيْهِ, rather, instead, what he should do is to point others to that shaykh who's more qualified. وَلَا يَتْرُكُ إِسْمَاعَ أَحَدٍ لِنِيَّةٍ فَاسِدَةٍ. And amongst the etiquettes of the shaykh is not to refrain from delivering to anyone because of having a bad intention. Because that's the trap of the devil for you. So don't refrain from the good deed because of the bad intention. That might sound strange to someone. Say, how's that? Because if you do like that, it's going to stop you from doing good deeds. So what you should do is don't say I'm not going to do it because I don't have a good deed. Do it and because I don't have a good intention. Don't say I'm not going to do it because I don't have a good intention. Do it and have a good intention. Correct your intention and do it. وَأَن يَتَطَهَّرَ وَيَجْلِسَ بِوَقَارٍ. And also the shaykh should perform purification. Let him perform ghusl before he gives his lesson and make wudu and deliver his lesson on wudu. And he says, and let him sit with serenity. Let him sit with dignity. Yani, let him sit dignified. So there's no problem with him. That shaykh also dressing nicely, putting nice qalansawa on his head or turban on his head, wearing jubba, a cloak, for example, having long qamis and having nice appearance. I remember once, many years ago, I wasn't, before anyone called me Shaykh. So then I was just brother only. And so the teacher, I went to the lesson. The teacher didn't come. So they told me, give the lesson. So I got up, I got at the table to give the lesson, whatever I could give. But I had a Superman t-shirt on. When I sat at that table with a Superman t-shirt, some people, they just got up and walked right out the door. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. وَلَا يُحَدِّثَ قَائِمًا. And let him not deliver hadiths while standing. That's amongst the manners of the hadith scholar. وَلَا عَجِلَ. Nor should he deliver while rushing, while he's in a rush. وَلَا فِي الطَّرِيقِ. Nor should he deliver in the middle of the street, or on the road, on the sidewalk. إِلَّا إِنْ يَضْطُرَّ إِلَى ذَلِكَ. Unless he was forced to do so, meaning unless he had to, unless it was a situation that needs to be taken care of. This means here you have some wisdom. So you're going to look at the situation. Someone stopped you in the middle of the road and you're the shaykh. So you might assess your situation and you see that, for example, there's no emergency here. It's not needed now. For example, it's not urgent. and the environment is not conducive, and then you might say, not now, later. Or you might do that, and then you say, this one needs this information I have for him. And then you give it to him right then and there. And I'll remind you also that it's good for, what's mentioned in books of fiqh, also something that you could apply. What they said about the judges. When should the judge refrain from giving verdict? If he's fighting the urge to go to the bathroom, if he's very hot, or he's very cold, or he's very happy, or he's very sad, or has strong desire for his wife at the moment, or the likes of these types of distracting things. So even if you're not a judge, then you might implement some of this. Someone wants to ask you a question, and then you say, I need to use the bathroom. I can't answer you now, for example. Also, if he's very hungry, وأن يمسك عن التحديث إذا خشي التغير, and to hold back from delivering hadiths if he fears altering. If he fears altering the information. If he fears delivering it impurely. Yeah, like if he's sick also. But if it's not necessary, these things I'm saying, not necessary, because they told us about our Shaykh that he would be very sick, he would still teach. We heard that the Shaykh, sometimes he would be so sick that he can't sit up. He can only lay down. He would still teach. But it might be the case, though. You're sick, you can't do it. You're going to assess your own ability to concentrate. So he says, and that amongst the manners of the Shaykh is to hold back from delivering hadiths if he fears altering the information. That's better. That falls in line with what Ash-Shafi'i said, may Allah have mercy upon him. That he said, and I'm summarizing, one of the indications of a person's precision in delivery is that he summarizes. Not that he goes extensively into details. So contrary to what one might imagine. How's that? Why so? Because when he's summarizing means that he's attempting to only say things that are accurate. So that he can give you an amount of information, all of it is true, even if there's still more information that could be said. Anything he's not sure of or he doesn't know, he skips it and he only gives you purely correct information. And as a result, he summarizes. But be mindful there. Don't summarize to the point of potentially corrupting the information or corrupting the person's understanding. If you don't know, say I don't know. When I studied overseas, when I was in first year of the university, I used to constantly pull C's, like grades in the 70s, 76, something like this, 78. Even, I was still getting used to the Arabic. I was confusing Sab'a and Thamaniya. I was happy that think it's 80 something, really it's 70 something. And I was like, why? Why is you giving me low scores like this? All the information is right. I didn't get anything wrong. The Shaykh would tell me you summarized. It's because he has a different goal, though. Because in testing means he wants to see the extent of your information. So when of course you want to be correct, but he has a goal to see if you can give back all of what you got and not only some of it. So then I used to not get the grades I was looking for. Until I got so tired of that. So one time I said to myself, okay, it seems that I'm unable to get something higher than like 70 something. So I had a tafsir test one time. I said, I'm going to memorize this entire thing here. Everything. What we had testing, whatever was the amount of the test for the tafsir lesson. I said, I'm going to memorize all of it. Everything on the page that we have to do, I'm going to memorize it verbatim. And if I don't pass this time, then I don't know what to do. Not that I was failing, but if I don't get like beautiful score this time, I don't know what to do. So I did that. It was, mashallah, it took effort. I went in there and I got like 90 something. So ever since then I said, that's the secret then. Memorize all of it. Go in and give all the information. That's what they want. So he says here, وَأَنْ يُمْسِكَ عَنِ التَّحْدِيثِ إِذَا خَشِيَ التَّغَيُّرِ, and to hold back from delivering hadiths if he fears altering. أَوْ النِّسْيَانِ, or if he fears forgetfulness. So it means he's not confident. To hold back, to hold back from delivery while lacking confidence. لِمَرَضٍ أَوْ haram, either because of being sick or because of being old. He'll take those things into consideration. وَإِذَا اتَّخَذَ مَجْلِسَ الْإِمْلَاءِ, and if the hadith scholar takes a dictation session, holds a dictation session. Dictation session, that's what I'm translating as dictation session. Al-Imla, Majlis al-Imla. That's when the hadith scholar would deliver what he has. So he would sit, basically, he has his hadiths or whatever he wants to give for that day. And he'll deliver his hadith with his chains of narration. And the people would attend, for example, might be something just for the scholars and students, or might be public. All the people can come to the masjid and listen, and they can take the hadiths. Like that, yani, those old days, people were getting knowledge. Yani, a layman in those old days is knowledgeable compared to us. But anyway, so he has dictation session. He says, if he holds a dictation session, أَن يَكُونَ لَهُ مُسْتَمْلٍ يَقِظ, then for him to take, maybe I could translate this as, for him to have a sharp secretary. The mustaml. Al-mustamli. Al-mustamli is the one who hears what the Shaykh says and then conveys it. Or apprentice. Let him have a sharp apprentice. Yaqil means he's woke. He's awake. So he's not distracted or easily distracted or slow. And how they used to do in those old days, they didn't have microphones. So the Shaykh would be there to deliver his hadiths. And he would have his students. So they might be around him, like closest to him, because they are his pupils. And they are his companions. And then other people too. If it's the masjid, for example, the people come and they are there. So if there's a big crowd, how's he going to make all the people hear? So he's going to have someone who stands some distance from him, in hearing distance though. He hears what the Shaykh says, and then he repeats so that the people can hear. And then if it's a bigger crowd, there will be another one, some distance from the first one. He hears what that one says, and then he repeats so that all the people can hear. And they would add as many as they need so that they can accommodate the crowd. So this is the mustamli. He says, وَيَنْفَرِدُ الطَّالِبُ بِأَنْ يُوَقِّرَ الشَّيْخ. And amongst the etiquette that's particular to the student is to have respect for the Shaykh. وَلَا يُضْجِرَهُ, and to not annoy him. Important. Subhanallah. I did that with a Shaykh. I'm not going to say who he was. I was still so very new. But just like now, just getting a new Muslim, yani. But just now getting the hang of like enjoying the knowledge and taking the knowledge and taking the notes. So I went to a Shaykh after a lesson. And he was visibly bothered, means he doesn't want to deal with me right now. So I'm following him, asking him, and this Shaykh, and this Shaykh, and what about this Shaykh, and how about this Shaykh? And he's so disturbed. I'm not letting him go. And he's trying to get his kids together in the car so they can leave. I'm following him to his car. And then while I'm asking him, one of his kids asked him. So then he shouted at his kid. When he did that, I said, oh. So I stopped and I left him immediately. Now that I think about it, maybe he shouted at his kid, not because he really lost, it looked like he lost his temper. But maybe not because he lost his temper, because he didn't want to shout at me. So he shouted at his own kid so that I would get the picture. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Very important, the scholars said, like Imam Al-Iraqi, that the one who annoys his Shaykh, it is feared that he will not reap the benefits of his Shaykh. I'll remind you of the story that Al-Iraqi mentioned in the explanation of his Alfiyah. And I was going to supplement what I'm reading now with what's there, but I decided not to so that we can try to finish the book, because we're right at the end. And what was that story he said? He said that he mentioned right now what Ibn Hajar is mentioning, that not to annoy the Shaykh. And then he said, it's feared that the one who annoys the Shaykh will not benefit from the Shaykh, will be deprived of the benefit of the Shaykh. It's feared that who annoys the Shaykh will be deprived of the benefit of the Shaykh. And Al-Iraqi said, and I saw that firsthand. He said, one of our Shaykhs, he got old and he wasn't able to read like he used to. Like that. When he was younger, they used to go long time, for example. He said he got old, so he wasn't able to do it for a long time like he used to. So he said one of the brothers, he asked the Shaykh to read a book on him, a book called Al-Umdah. So the Shaykh allowed him to read, and he said he read for a long time, more than what the Shaykh can tolerate. He said after he read for so long, the Shaykh said to him, may you not be given the life to transmit this from me. And Al-Iraqi said that one died shortly after that, and he never got a chance to transmit that information. Subhanallah. وَيُرْشِدَ غَيْرَهُ لِمَا سَمِعَهُ. And amongst the manners of the student is to guide others to what he has heard or by what he has heard. Yani, because he's learning, that means he's getting knowledge, getting beneficial information that's useful, beneficial, helpful, rewardable, etc. So then what does he do? Keep it to himself? Or he shares it with others so that they will benefit too? So he shares that knowledge. Don't be a miser with the knowledge. Shaykh Hussam, he gathered us once, the students, and he gave us some advice. Two of them stuck with me. He said, do not be arrogant with your sheikhs who have not gotten the chance to acquire what you are now acquiring. because we went to study overseas. Yani, when you're in university setting, that means you're getting concentrated knowledge now. Not like, it's not the same as going to lesson in the musalla for an hour a day. Maybe there's yani 2 lessons a week, 3 lessons a week, and you go for an hour. Yani, you're getting 3 hours of lessons per week. Not like that. And you going studying in university or mahad setting means you're getting lessons for hours at a time every day, 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours of learning every day, 5 days or 6 days a week. He said to us, do not be arrogant with your shaykhs who haven't gotten the opportunity to learn what you are now learning. Now that you got the chance to come and learn, you left them behind in your towns that you came from. You were learning from them. Now you're getting a lot of knowledge. That was one thing. And he said, and do not hide the knowledge. He said, لا تكتموا العلم. Don't withhold the knowledge. But, yani, that's true. Very good advice. Very important. But does not mean you say everything you heard. And it does not mean you don't have a filter. You have to have a filter. If you don't have a filter, that means you're a fool. If you ever hear someone say, I don't even have a filter, then that's that person saying to you, I am a fool. What did the Prophet say, alayhi salatu wassalam? كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كَذِبًا أَنْ يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ. It means it suffices a person. It's enough to suffice a person as a lie. Yani, for a person to say everything that he heard is enough to suffice him as a lie. It means he's like a liar. How's that? Because liars shouldn't be talking with his lies. Sometimes you're not lying, but you don't know how to shut your mouth. Don't say something just because you heard it. Don't say something just because it's true. Might not be wise. وَلَا يَدَعُ الْإِسْتِفَادَةَ لِحَيَاءٍ أَوْ تَكَبُّرٍ. And the student should not refrain from benefiting others or benefiting himself. Al-istifada. Yani, this word istifada could maybe use some elaboration, because you could benefit others and you might benefit yourself also. What is Ibn Hajar saying here? And so I'm just going to translate in by what appears, just literal translation. And let the student not let the student not refrain from benefiting because of shyness or arrogance. And either way, it's going to be true though, because you're going to deprive yourself because of shyness or arrogance, and you're going to deprive others also because of shyness or arrogance. 2 types of people don't learn: the shy and the arrogant. Shy ones too afraid to ask, and the arrogant's too proud to ask. And then some others, they're going to not benefit others. They're too shy to speak up when they should speak up. Sometimes you need to speak up, tell the person, no, not like that. No, that's wrong. No, do it like this. That's invalid. But you might not say anything because of weakness in yourself, and then you let the munkar go without saying anything. And you had the knowledge to correct the situation. Or out of the arrogance, like the one who wants to be the Shaykh. He wants to be the one that the others go to. So he wants to be, as they say, gatekeeper. So he doesn't share his knowledge easily. He's miser. So he doesn't benefit others as much as he could. وَيَكْتُبْ hold on, I think I got my harakat wrong here. وَيُرْشِدَ غَيْرَهُ لِمَا سَمِعَ ولا يدع الاستفادة لحياء أو تكبر ويكتب ما سمعه تاما. And let the student write what he heard completely, not partially. Let him write all of it completely, not partially. But there is some cases when you can write partially, not completely. So first, by default, write completely. Like if you're an amateur, a beginner, you're a beginner, write completely, everything. Write the whole lesson if you can, and even till your hand is hurting. Write till your hand's hurting. That's good for you, inshallah. Don't stop writing. I could show you if I wanted to take photos of all the notebooks that I filled up. I'm not saying this out of bragging. I'm saying it to benefit you. Those notebooks that I filled up, binders, that hurts. That's not easy, mashallah. But then you're going to reap the benefits. Write everything. Even if you took the lesson before, you can write it all over again. But there are times when you could not write everything. Like when you've mastered your knowledge and you know that some of the information you're hearing is information you have already very well documented, very well memorized, and then you might not write something because you have it already. And also your circumstances might justify for you to not write everything. Like you're a traveling student and your paper's limited and your ink is limited. So then you need to pinpoint some things that you need to get, some gaps that you need to fill, for example, and not write every single thing. But still, if you want to be someone who doesn't write everything, be afraid. Because the scholars spoke about that. Better to write everything than not to write everything. Because that one thing you didn't write, that's going to mess around and be what you needed one day. And you didn't write it down. And subhanAllah, I think people don't write a lot these days. I'm talking about Muslims. Kuffar in the first place don't hardly write. Their education is poor. That's a general statement. But the Muslims today writing very little, I think, because of the technology. That's not good. Because we were taking lessons when we didn't have all these things. Most we had was tape recorders. So that's like 20 something years ago. It's tape recorders. And personally, I didn't like to record my lessons because whenever I recorded my lessons, I didn't take good notes because it's going to be in the back of my mind. I can go back and listen to the recording. So I used to not record the lesson, and that would motivate me to write everything. Except there's some sheikhs that's not easy to write what they say. There are some sheikhs, their style is like that. It's not easy to write what they say. So I would record their lessons. And there's some sheikhs, I would like to listen to their lesson, like it's enjoyable. So I would record their lessons so I can listen to it. And as a new Muslim too, when I started recording these lessons, that was something that helped to get me away from listening to haram music as an alternative. That was part of what got me start memorizing the knowledge, was listening to lessons instead of listening to music. So then when I listen to the lesson again and again and again, just like when you listen to the music, what's going to happen? You're going to memorize all the lyrics. You're even going to memorize all the musical notes, all the riffs and everything, because you listen to it over and over. So what's going to happen when you listen to the lessons over and over and over again? You're going to memorize them. وَيَعْتَنِيَ بِالتَّقْيِيدِ وَالضَّبْطِ. And let the student take care of accuracy. So, yani, how would he take care of accuracy? By, for example, making sure all of his harakat are right. And by reviewing with his peers after the lesson. They can read together, compare notes. Some people are so sloppy. Subhanallah wa bihamdih. وَيُذَاكِرَ بِمَحْفُوظِهِ لِيَرْسَخَ فِي ذِهْنِهِ. And let the student review what he already memorized so that it seeps into his heart, into his mind, yani. So that it will be very well rooted. So that the roots of that will travel down into his self, into his mind. It will stay. Because when you listen to the lesson, yani, the understanding and comprehension comes in stages and levels. When you listen to the lesson, if it's clear, then you understood something and you got some knowledge. If you go back and review that lesson a second time, a third time, fourth time, after you repeat it 2, 3, 4 times, you're going to say, for example, it's as if I didn't even understand this. After you actually memorize it verbatim, again, you're going to be like, it's like I never even understood it the first time. Now I really understand it. What was I even understanding the first time? And if you don't review and memorize, then it's going to leave you most likely, unless you have photographic memory. If you're a normal person, average person, what you'd heard, it's going to be gone in about 15 or 20 minutes. All that's going to be left, something will be left. What's going to be left? It's going to be a trace. It's going to be a trace left. It's not going to be just like you took it. So that's why when you get it, then you memorize it immediately. And memorizing, by the way, is going to be the vast majority of your time. If you want to be good and strong in the knowledge, yani, I'll remind you and I'll remind myself, there's no problem with striving to be a scholar. There's no problem with having the intention of being a scholar. Just like you can make the intention to strive to be a saint through your worships, your prayers, and your fasting, your charities, and your sincere intentions and your good deeds, so that Allah would raise your rank for you. There's no problem with such an intention, to strive for the high levels of piety. Likewise, there's no problem with having the intention to strive for the high levels of knowledge or higher levels. And just like a person might strive to be a fighter for the sake of Allah, what does he do? He works out, he trains, he studies. I didn't mean to say study. He trains, he exercises, everything, keep his body in shape, learn how to fight well. For the sake of Allah, there's no problem with any of these goals. Some people might say, but don't try to be a scholar. No, that's a bad advice. Especially if you have potential. Male or female. But you have to put the time in. You have to put the effort in. And most of your time is going to go to memorizing. That's if you want to be very strong. You could be strong without memorizing, but the strongest ones are the memorizers. It was even said about one scholar, when some scholars were talking about him, they were just talking about some of the scholars. They said, Fulan is the student of Fulan. And his Shaykh, what they said about that one, they said, he didn't used to memorize, but he didn't used to make mistakes. He didn't used to memorize, but he didn't used to make mistakes. Subhanallah. So by saying that he didn't used to memorize, this takes him down a notch, maybe. Or maybe more than one notch. But at least he didn't used to make mistakes. So we might as well stop here, inshaAllah ta'ala, and we'll continue next time, inshaAllah. But I do want to say one more thing for you before we go. Remember also that what are the levels of hadiths? There's Sahih hadith, right? Sahih hadith means hadith that has highest levels of authenticity. Rather, let me say, Sahih hadith means hadith that fulfills the highest conditions of acceptance. That's what I really meant to say. Sahih hadith means a hadith that fulfills the highest conditions of acceptability, because there are conditions of acceptability. So the conditions of acceptability, those conditions themselves have levels. So when a hadith has the highest levels of those conditions, then it's going to be a Sahih hadith. A Hasan hadith is a hadith that has the lowest levels of acceptability, so that means it's acceptable. Lowest levels of acceptability means it's acceptable, so acceptable is good. And what makes the difference between a Sahih narrator and a Hasan narrator? The Sahih narrator, he memorizes on a vast scale, and his mistakes are rare. Like Shafi'i, Al-Bukhari, people like that. Their memories, their stories are obvious and known to you. I don't have to go through all of that. They didn't have average memories. Their scale of memorization puts them at the highest levels of acceptability. In that regard, in that there's other conditions also. And so what about the Hasan narrator? What's his case? The Hasan narrator, at least he protects his books. He verifies them. So he takes his knowledge. He has authentic source of knowledge in the first place. And so he gathers his knowledge. He verifies his knowledge, because the mistake could be from him. Maybe he wrote something wrong. Maybe he heard something wrong. Mistake could be from his Shaykh. Maybe his Shaykh had slip of the tongue. Or maybe his Shaykh delivered correctly, but he took a mistake. So he delivered what he heard, but what he heard was wrong. So the Hasan narrators, they verify their knowledge. And then they don't memorize on that vast scale, but they protect their books. That means they have bias in terms of who they let hold their books, if they even let anyone hold their books. Those books are precious. That book that you took, and if you're taking a book, that's your asl, that's your source. So that book is a precious book. What you see on the screen I'm sharing with you, that's not my copy of Nukhbat Al-Fikar. My copy is right here in my hand. This copy here is priceless. I'm not going to probably let somebody hold that. I don't know, maybe I would, but you're going to have to be a real special one to be able to take that away from me. So I remember when I first learned about that this is the case of the Hasan narrator. So I said, okay, then I'm going to always protect my books. So I used to never leave my books anywhere. I used to never leave my books anywhere. Like if there was a break, I would pack my books up, put them in my backpack, and keep my backpack with me until we go back to class, and I'll come back with all my books coming and going. Even when I studied overseas, when we used to have lunch break or breakfast, if you want, a little bit. It's breakfast, but a little bit late in the morning, not early in the morning. Around 10:30 in the morning or something, we would eat breakfast. We would stop lessons to eat. And we used to leave the classroom and go to a spot that's outside. Really, it's enclosed, but there was no roof. So it's like we're outside, but it's enclosed from all four directions. So that's where we used to eat. If it was, yeah, that's where we used to eat. So I used to bring my backpack with me. All we used to do is stop for like 20 minutes maybe to eat and then go back to class. They used to say to me, why you bring your backpack? Why don't you just leave your books? Nobody's going to steal your books. Of course, I didn't believe anybody would, but I did that out of practicing this. So I used to tell them, it's because the Hassan narrator protects his books. Subhanallah. And there was one time when I did leave my book. The one time, I left my book on the table for a break. When we came back, my book wasn't there. My book was not where I left it. And I spent about 15 minutes while the Shaykh started giving the lesson, looking for my book. Where's my book? Where's my book? Until I finally found it. So that was a lesson for me. Somebody moved it. Subhanallah. Wallahu a'lam. And you said, who's my Shaykh? Well, I would say my main Shaykh is Shaykh Samir Al-Qadi. But alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to take from a number of Shaykhs. Shaykh Samir Al-Qadi and Haj Ali Ghazawi and some other Shaykhs. Shaykh Abdul Rahman Ammash and some others. Took from Shaykh Abdul Rahman a number of books. Rahimahullah. MashaAllah. Do you have any question I can answer for you? And now, I wouldn't usually be liking to say these things about myself, but because there's a benefit in doing so. Then there's no problem. When there's a benefit, then it's good to do things like that. Like, if you're giving charity in the open, will encourage others to give charity, then do it. Give charity in the open with sincere intention. Ameen wa fikum. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.